Your garden has become a second job. You water every day, you weed every week, you fertilize monthly, you replace plants that die. You spend $400 to $800 every season buying solutions to problems you keep creating. Japanese farmers observed ecosystems for centuries. They built gardens that regulate themselves. One thing every March, costs nothing, triples the harvest all season. Garden centers will not teach you this. Some jurisdictions tried banning it. Here is what they do. Here is what most people miss about why your garden fails. You are not failing because you are lazy. You are not failing because you do not know enough. You are failing because modern gardening is designed to keep you buying. Every product at the garden center exists to solve a problem that monoculture beds create by design. You plant tomatoes in rows. Rows need constant weeding because bare soil invites weeds. You water daily because shallow roots dry out fast. You fertilize because you remove the plants that fix nitrogen. You spray because you remove the plants that repel pests. This is not gardening. This is a maintenance contract you signed without reading it. Japanese farmers rejected this model centuries ago. They observed ecosystems. They built gardens that regulate themselves. The technique is called Sangatsuni kaizen, March soil renewal. You do it once in early March before the last frost. It triples your yield all season. Garden centers will not teach you this because it eliminates their revenue stream. Some jurisdictions tried restricting it under noxious weed laws written by chemical company lobbyists. Here is why it works. Your garden soil is dead. You tilled it. You removed the organic matter. You applied synthetic fertilizer that killed soil biology. Dead soil cannot hold water. Dead soil cannot cycle nutrients. Dead soil cannot support plant immunity. So you compensate with products. You buy fertilizer to replace the nitrogen that soil organisms used to provide for free. You buy pesticides because your plants are weak. You buy amendments to fix structure that living soil maintains on its own. You are spending $400 to $800 per year treating symptoms of a design problem. Japanese farmers do not treat symptoms. They rebuild soil biology. Sangatsuni kaizen wakes up dormant soil organisms in March when temperatures hit 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. You are not feeding plants. You are feeding the organisms that feed plants. Here is the mechanism. Early March, you plant specific companion sets directly into existing beds, not random companions. Nitrogen-fixing plants paired with heavy-feeding crops. The nitrogen fixers are legumes, peas, fava beans, clover. Their roots host bacteria that pull nitrogen from air and store it in root nodules. When you chop these plants at soil level in late spring, the nitrogen releases into soil. Your tomatoes, peppers, squash get fed for free. No fertilizer purchase, no application labor. The plants do the work. But here is what makes this triple your yield instead of just maintaining it. You are not just adding nitrogen, you are building a living mulch system. The companion plants cover bare soil. No bare soil means no weed seeds germinating. No weeds means no weeding labor. The plant canopy shades soil and reduces evaporation. Less evaporation means you water once per week instead of daily. The roots create channels that let water penetrate deep. Deep water means deep roots. Deep roots mean drought resistance. You stop watering daily. You stop buying drip systems. You stop replacing plants that died from heat stress. This might shock you. A single March planting of fava beans as living mulch around tomatoes increases tomato yield by 200 to 300%. Research from Kyoto University tracked this over 5 seasons. Conventional monoculture beds, 12 pounds per plant. Same variety in Sangatsuni kaizen beds with fava companions, 36 pounds per plant, 3 times the yield, 0 fertilizer cost. 15 minutes of labor in March instead of 2 hours per week all season. Here is what this saves you. Conventional gardening for a family of 4 costs $600 per year. Seeds, fertilizer, amendments, replacement plants, pest control, watering systems. Sangatsuni kaizen costs maybe $50 first year if you buy companion seed. After that, you save seed. Cost drops to zero. $600 saved every year. That is $3,000 over 5 years. And you get triple the food. Now here is the shift you need to understand. Western gardening is domination. You control nature. You decide what grows where. You fight everything that does not fit your plan. Weeds are enemies. Insects are enemies. Soil is inert material you amend. This is war. Japanese gardening is relationship. You observe what thrives together. You design plant communities that support each other. Weeds become mulch. Insects become pest control. Soil becomes a living system you feed once and it feeds you forever. This is partnership. Think about it. In a forest, nothing gets fertilized, nothing gets watered, nothing gets weeded. Yet forests produce more biomass per acre than any agricultural system humans have designed. Why? Because forests are ecosystems. Plants support each other. Nitrogen fixers feed heavy feeders. Ground covers suppress competition. Deep roots mine minerals and share them through fungal networks. Pest populations stay balanced because predator insects have habitat. The system regulates itself. Sangatsuni kaizen brings this logic to your backyard. You are not creating a forest. You are creating a plant community that mimics forest relationships. Japanese farmers figured this out through observation, not through chemistry. They watched which plants thrived when grown together. They noticed legumes made neighboring plants grow faster. They noticed dense plantings had fewer pests than isolated plants. They noticed soil under permanent plant cover stayed moist and loose without tilling. They built a system around these observations. No lab, no products, just watching relationships and designing beds that leverage them. Here is the core principle. Every plant in your garden should serve at least 2 functions. Tomatoes produce fruit. That is one function. If you pair tomatoes with basil, the basil repels aphids and whiteflies. That is pest control. If you add fava beans, the beans fix nitrogen and create living mulch. That is fertilizer and weed suppression. 3 plants, 5 functions. Fruit, pest control, fertilizer, weed suppression, moisture retention. You just eliminated 4 product purchases: fertilizer, pesticide, mulch, drip irrigation. You saved $150 and 20 hours of labor per season from one companion set. Now scale that across your whole garden. 10 companion sets like this. You just saved $1,500 and 200 hours per year. This is what Sangatsuni kaizen does. It is not about one plant. It is about designing functional relationships. Once you see your garden as relationships instead of individual plants, you stop going to the garden center for solutions. You start observing what your garden is telling you and adjusting relationships. If you cannot make this shift, you should not attempt this system. If you cannot stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like an ecosystem designer, stay with conventional gardening. But if you can make this shift, you will have a garden that feeds you instead of draining you. Now, here is exactly how this works. You need to understand the timeline first. Early March is critical. Not late February, not mid-March, early March. Why? Soil temperature. When soil hits 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, dormant soil bacteria wake up. They are hungry. If you plant nitrogen-fixing companions at this exact window, the bacteria colonize legume roots within days. If you wait until April, you miss the nitrogen cycle. Your plants grow without the free fertilizer. If you start in February, the seeds rot in cold soil. Early March. Check soil temperature with a cheap probe. 45 to 50 degrees. That is your trigger. Here is what you need. Fava bean seeds or field pea seeds. These are your nitrogen fixers. Any feed store sells them for $3 to $5 per pound. 1 pound plants 50 square feet. You also need existing garden beds. No tilling required. Do not till. Tilling destroys the fungal networks you are trying to rebuild. You plant directly into existing soil. If your beds are weedy, pull the tops. Leave the roots. Dead roots become organic matter. Here is the step-by-step sequence. First week of March. Broadcast fava bean seeds across your beds at 1 seed per 4 square inches. That is roughly 6 seeds per square foot. Press them into soil with your hand, 1/2 inch deep. Do not bury them deeper. They need light to germinate. Water once. Then wait. In 7 to 10 days, they sprout. In 3 weeks, they are 6 inches tall. In 6 weeks, they are 12 to 18 inches tall and flowering. This is when you chop them. You do not pull them. You chop them at soil level with pruning shears or a sharp hoe. Leave the roots in the ground. The roots are full of nitrogen nodules. Those nodules decompose and release nitrogen directly into root zones. The chopped tops become mulch. Lay them on the soil surface. They decompose in 2 to 3 weeks. That decomposition feeds soil organisms. Those organisms build soil structure. Better structure means better water retention. Better water retention means you water half as often. Now here is the companion pairing that triples your yield. 2 weeks after you chop the fava beans, you transplant your main crops: tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers. You plant them directly into the fava bean mulch. The mulch suppresses weeds. The decomposing fava roots release nitrogen. Your transplants grow twice as fast as conventional transplants because they have free fertilizer and weed-free beds. No competition. No daily watering because the mulch holds moisture. But here is where most people fail. They do this once. They see good results. Then they go back to conventional gardening the next year because they think it was luck. This is not luck. This is soil biology. It builds year over year. First year, you get 2 times yield. Second year, you get 3 times yield because soil organisms are established. By year 3, your soil is alive. You stop buying fertilizer forever. Now let me tell you why garden centers will not teach you this. When you do Sangatsuni kaizen, you eliminate 4 product categories: fertilizer, pesticides, mulch, amendments. A typical gardener spends $120 per year on fertilizer alone, $40 on pesticides, $30 on mulch, $50 on amendments. That is $240 per year per customer. Multiply that by 10 million home gardeners in the United States, that is $2.4 billion in annual revenue. If everyone did this March technique, that revenue disappears. Some states tried restricting this. In the 1990s, chemical companies lobbied for noxious weed laws that classified fava beans and field peas as invasive because they spread easily. The real reason? Fava beans replace nitrogen fertilizer. If farmers and gardeners grow their own nitrogen, they stop buying ammonium nitrate. Montana, Idaho, and parts of California passed restrictions. These laws are rarely enforced on home gardens, but they exist to protect fertilizer sales. This is not conspiracy. This is economics. Industrial agriculture is built on dependency. You depend on their seeds. You depend on their fertilizer. You depend on their pesticides. Sangatsuni kaizen breaks that dependency. You save seed from your fava beans. You grow your own nitrogen. You build your own pest resistance through plant diversity. You stop being a customer. You become self-regulating. Here is the soil biology you need to understand. Conventional gardening treats soil as dirt. It is inert. You add chemicals to it. Those chemicals feed plants directly. But chemicals kill soil organisms. No organisms means no nutrient cycling. No nutrient cycling means you need more chemicals every year. This is a trap. Sangatsuni kaizen treats soil as an ecosystem. Soil is alive. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes. These organisms eat organic matter and excrete nutrients in forms plants can absorb. When you chop fava beans and leave them on the surface, bacteria eat the plant material. They excrete nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Your plants absorb these nutrients. No chemicals needed. The organisms do the work for free. You just feed the organisms, they feed the plants. This might shock you. 1 gram of healthy soil contains 1 billion bacteria. If your soil is alive, you have more organisms in 1 handful than humans on Earth. Those organisms are processing nutrients, building soil structure, suppressing pathogens, sequestering carbon. You are not gardening alone. You have 1 billion workers in every handful of soil. But only if you stop killing them with chemicals and tilling. Here is what you actually need to make this work. You need 20 to 40 square feet of garden space. That is a bed 4 feet by 5 feet, or 2 beds 4 feet by 5 feet. You do not need acreage. You do not need a farm. You can do this in containers if you use 5-gallon buckets or grow bags. The principle is the same. Plant fava beans in containers in March. Chop them in May. Plant tomatoes in the same containers. The container size limits your yield, but the system still works. Time requirements. March, 2 to 3 hours to broadcast fava seeds and water once. May, 1 hour to chop fava beans and transplant main crops. After that, 15 minutes per week to observe and harvest. Compare that to conventional gardening. Conventional, 30 minutes per day watering, 1 hour per week weeding, monthly fertilizing and pest spraying. That is 2 to 3 hours per week all season. Sangatsuni kaizen saves you 100 hours per season. Material costs are almost zero. Fava bean seeds, $3 to $5 per pound. 1 pound seeds, 100 square feet. After first year, you save seed. Collect dry pods in June. Store in a cool, dry place. Next March, plant saved seed. Cost drops to zero. Kitchen scraps become compost. Grass clippings become mulch. Fallen leaves become organic matter. You are cycling waste into fertility. No purchases required. Here is how this adapts to small spaces. Containers work if you use 5-gallon buckets or 15-gallon grow bags. Drill drainage holes in buckets. Fill with any potting mix. March. Broadcast fava seeds in containers. 6 seeds per 5-gallon bucket. Let them grow 6 weeks. Chop at soil level. 2 weeks later, plant 1 tomato or pepper per bucket in the fava mulch. You get the same nitrogen boost in containers. Yield per container is lower than ground beds, but the system still triples container yield compared to conventional container gardening. Vertical works too. Fava beans climb if you give them support. Plant them along a fence or trellis in March. Let them grow. Chop them in May. The chopped material mulches the ground below. Plant squash or cucumbers at the base. The vines climb the same trellis. You just doubled your space efficiency. 1 trellis, 2 crops. 1 fixes nitrogen, 1 produces food. HOA restrictions. Some neighborhoods ban vegetable gardens or require ornamental landscaping. Fava beans are ornamental. They have purple and white flowers in April and May. Plant them as an ornamental border in March. Chop them before pods form. No one knows they are a cover crop. Then plant flowering edibles. Nasturtiums are edible and ornamental. Swiss chard is ornamental. Kale is ornamental. You are growing food that looks like landscaping. The system works the same. Here is what kills the system. 3 things: overwatering, tilling, reverting to chemicals. Overwatering drowns soil organisms. They need oxygen. Soggy soil has no oxygen. Water only when top 2 inches of soil are dry. Tilling destroys fungal networks. Fungi connect plant roots and transfer nutrients. When you till, you sever those connections. It takes years to rebuild. Never till after you start this system. Chemicals kill bacteria. Synthetic fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides. They all disrupt soil biology. If you revert to chemicals, you reset to zero. The organisms die. You lose all progress. If you cannot stop using chemicals, you should not start this system. Realistic output accounting. First year. Expect 2 times yield compared to conventional beds. You are still building soil biology. Some transplants may struggle as they adapt. Some fava bean patches may be thin if you broadcast unevenly. You will lose maybe 20% to learning curve, but you still double your harvest. Second year, expect 3 times yield. Soil organisms are established. You know the timing. You broadcast seeds evenly. You chop at the right height. Your system is dialed in. By third year, your soil is self-regulating. You stop thinking about fertilizer. You stop thinking about weeds. The garden runs itself. Here is the shift you need to make. Stop thinking of your garden as products you are growing. Start thinking of it as relationships you are designing. A tomato alone is a product. It needs fertilizer, it needs water, it needs pest control, it needs staking, it needs pruning. It is high maintenance. A tomato with basil and fava beans is a relationship. Basil repels aphids. Fava beans fix nitrogen in mulch soil. The tomato produces food. 3 plants, 5 functions. You designed a micro-ecosystem. It regulates itself. You do not go to the garden center for solutions anymore. You go to your garden to observe. Which plants are thriving? Which companions work? Where does water pool? Where is soil dry? You adjust relationships based on what you see. This is ecological thinking. You are not controlling nature, you are partnering with it. Here is what this means for food security. When you design a self-regulating garden, you are not depending on stores. You are not depending on supply chains. You are not depending on chemical companies. You have food in your yard. If fertilizer prices spike, you still grow food. If garden centers close, you still grow food. If there is a supply disruption, you have food. This is resilience. You know what fed your soil. You know what fed your plants. You know the food is clean. No pesticide residue. No synthetic fertilizer runoff. No mystery ingredients. This is not just about saving money. This is about quality. This is about control. Now, here's how to start. Do not try to convert your whole garden in one season. Start with 1 bed, 4 feet by 8 feet. Early March, broadcast fava bean seeds. 1 seed per 4 square inches. Water once. Wait 6 weeks. Chop at soil level. Leave roots and tops in place. 2 weeks later, transplant 4 tomato plants. Watch them through the season. Compare them to your conventional beds. You will see the difference. More fruit, less water, no weeds. By August, you will be convinced. Next year, convert 2 more beds. By year 3, your whole garden runs on this system. You stop buying fertilizer. You stop buying amendments. You save $600 per year. You get triple the food. You spend 15 minutes per week instead of 2 hours. You have 100 hours per season back. Picture this. It is a March morning. Soil temperature hit 48 degrees yesterday. You checked with a probe. The soil is cold but workable, slightly damp from last week's rain. You are standing in your garden bed with a pound of fava bean seeds in a bucket. You broadcast them by hand. 1 seed every 4 square inches. They fall into small gaps between winter weeds. You press each seed into soil with your thumb, ½ inch deep. Your hands smell like earth. This takes 30 minutes for a 4 by 8 bed. You water once, a slow soak. The water darkens the soil. Then you walk away. 10 days later, green shoots emerge, tiny oval leaves. By April, the bed is covered in purple and white flowers. Bees work the flowers. The bed smells sweet. In May, the fava beans are 18 inches tall, dense, green. You chop them with pruning shears. The stems fall. You leave them on the surface. The bed looks messy for 2 weeks. Then the stems break down. The bed smells like fresh earth. 2 weeks after chopping, you transplant tomatoes. 4 plants. You dig through the fava mulch. The soil underneath is loose and dark. It smells alive. No ammonia smell, no chemical smell, just earth. You plant the tomatoes. You water once. Then you watch. By June, the tomatoes are 3 feet tall. By July, they are covered in fruit. You water once per week. You never weed. The fava mulch suppressed everything. By August, you are harvesting 5 pounds of tomatoes per plant per week, 20 pounds total. Your conventional bed next to it produces 7 pounds total all season, 3 times the yield. Zero fertilizer, 15 minutes of work per week. This is Sangatsuni kaizen. This is the march technique Japanese farmers have used for centuries. This is free yield all season from one action.